Hey. One who sells the head of a large animal has not sold the legs. If he sold the legs, he has not sold the head. If he sold the trachea, he has not sold the liver. If he sold the liver, he has not sold the trachea. However, in the case of a small animal, if he sold the head, he has sold the legs. If he sold the legs, he has not. If he sold the legs, he has not sold the head. If he sold the trachea, he has sold the liver. If he sold the liver, he has not sold the trachea. There are four rules for dealing with sales. If he sold him superior wheat and it was found to be inferior, the buyer can retract. If he sold him inferior wheat and it was found to be superior, the seller can retract. If he sold him inferior wheat and it was found to be inferior, or superior wheat and it was found to be superior, neither can retract. If he sold him red wheat and it was found to be white, or white wheat and it was found to be red, or he sold him olive wood and it was found to be sycamore, or sycamore and it was found to be olive, or he sold him wine and it was found to be vinegar, or vinegar and it was found to be wine, both of them can retract. If one sold produce to another, if he drew it but he did not measure it, he has acquired it. If he measured the field but did not draw it, he has not acquired it. If he is prudent, he rents his space. One who buys flax from another does not acquire it until it moves it from place to place. If it was attached to the ground and he detached any amount, he's acquired it. Very good.
Okay. Mocher yain b'shemen lechavero. Okay, so two guys get together and they do a deal to buy wine or oil at a certain price, and they're basically shaken hands on the deal, but they haven't made a kinyan. We're not talking about diamonds here because diamonds shaking hands is the kinyan.
Right.
Okay. So right. So then suddenly they hear news that that a giant warehouse of oil or wine has burnt down, and the price of wine has suddenly shot up, or it went down for whatever reason. Okay. So now it all depends. They agreed on a certain amount. Now have they filled up the measuring thing that the buyer is using to purchase it? And the Mishnah says puts it pretty simply. It says if the midah hasn't yet been filled, then it still belongs to the seller because the buyer hasn't taken possession of it. But after the measuring cup has been filled up, then it belongs to the buyer, and the seller can't change his mind. Okay, now this is not as simple as it seems, because what kind of kinyan is this if it's in the cup? If the cup belongs to the seller, then the buyer hasn't acquired it even when it's full. And if it belongs to the buyer, then he acquires it every drop that comes in. He's acquiring as it goes along. So the Gemara clarifies that this must be a situation where they borrowed a measuring cup from a third party, and basically it's kind of in a neutral zone, that until it's filled up, it still belongs to it's basically the vessel is lent to the seller at the time that up until it's filled up, and as soon as it's filled up, then the kli is lent to the buyer, and therefore it automatically becomes his. Okay. And if it's got measuring lines in the middle as you're going along, then each measuring line that it reaches is a kinyan for the buyer, because that portion of the cup is now his, basically.
So is that they have to pick it? He has to pick it up every time he gets to a new line.
No, he doesn't have to pick it up. That's the whole point. Is that the kli itself does the kinyan for him, because it's sitting in his kli, or it's in the kli that he has borrowed. Okay. What happens if you've got an agent between them? All right, somebody who's facilitating the sale between them. Now, what happens if the barrel gets broken? Then the agent is the one who's going to take the loss. Wait, does it see this? It was because he wasn't being careful about the measuring, and that's why it broke. Not because of an honest. Okay, so if it's broken for the agent is the one who's responsible, and he has to pay the has to pay the damages like somebody who like a shomer sachar. Okay, because he is getting a reward out of it, and he's supposed to be looking after it, and now it was damaged on account of his negligence. Yes, Mefarshim. Hold on. But the other Mefarshim say that this is talking about a barrel that belongs to the agent who lent it to the buyer and to the seller. And the Mishnah is telling us that if the agent is actually there, even though he's not doing the measuring, anything that even if the barrel breaks because of an ones, the agent is the one who takes the loss, because even when something is borrowed, if the person who owns it is there working with them, then the borrower is not responsible for the loss. Okay. The chayav. Okay. The chayav lahatif lo shalosh tipin. So when a person is pouring out wine or oil for somebody else from a measuring vessel, he has to finish. He has to turn it upside down basically until the stream has finished, and then after that, 3 discrete drops. And after 3 discrete drops, then he can turn the kli over, and he doesn't have to worry about whatever is left behind in the kli. Okay. So now he's got his kli that he's already done his 3 drops on, and he puts it back down, and now the oil sort of drips back from the walls and pools at the bottom of the kli again. It doesn't now become the property of the buyer. He's already done the 3 drops, and even though it's now pooling, and you can see a decent amount of oil at the bottom over there, the buyer can't come and say, "Hey, give me those last few drops." The mocher can say, "That's mine." And if it's a storekeeper who's doing this, as opposed to just like a private deal between 2 individuals, if he's a storekeeper, he doesn't even have to do the 3 drops, because he's got customers around him all the time, and he doesn't have time to sit waiting for 3 drops to come up on each one. He's got to serve all of his customers. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Erev Shabbos im chashecha patur. He limits this patur only to Erev Shabbos, as it's in the afternoon, because then people are rushing. But in the rest of the time, he would also be mechayev the storekeeper to wait to give 3 drops. But the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda. Mishna tes hashalech es beno eitzel chen vani upuntion biado. So he has a guy who sends his underage son with a pundion, which is a pundion is 2 isarim. So just in terms of your currency conversion, that'll be relevant. So he sends his kid with a pundion in his hand to the storekeeper with a message: please, can you give me an isar's worth of oil? Okay. And so I think he sends his son also with a jar to put the oil into. So the storekeeper looks at the situation and says, okay, so what does he want? So he takes the punja, gives back an isar in cash, in change, and takes the kli and fills it up with oil and gives it back to the son. And the son goes back, and the son loses both the oil and the money. Okay, so that's our situation. Madad lo be'isar shemen v'nasan lo isar. Shabar is atzlochis ve'ibed is isar. So he broke the jar and he lost the isar. Hachen v'ni chayav. The storekeeper is chayav for this loss.
Why is the storekeeper?
Why is the storekeeper chayav? Because he put the money into the oil into the hands of a shaliach who's not a worthy shaliach. He's not a kid. Isn't a good shomer. The shaliach says, but you, and he says to the father, he says, but you sent your son to me with the money. The father can say to him, I sent him with the money. I took the risk on the money. You're right, but I was expecting you just to put it aside for me, and I would have or to send it back to me with a responsible adult, not with the kid. And so now the chenvani can say, okay, that's fine, but Why am I chayav for your jar? You gave that jar to your kid. So you're the one who's chayav for giving him the jar, because I didn't give him the jar, you did. Okay. So now the father can say, oh, it's a good point, and you would have been right, he said, but I heard that you used my jar while he was filling up. You used my jar to fill up for other people, and since you borrowed it shelo b'rishus and you used it for yourself without permission, this the Gemara explains. It fills in a few of the details of the story, that what must have happened is that the storekeeper used the jar unauthorized, which turns him into a gazlan, and then he's chayav for the onsim as well.
I don't think that would hold up. I mean, American court, there's no way the storekeeper would be exempt. I don't see how that.
Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Poter she'al menasken shilcho. Rabbi Yehuda takes the view of that you expressed earlier, that the father, when he sends his son, the implicit intention is that he's going to send it back with his son. So therefore, it's the father who appointed the son as the shaliach, and therefore the chenvani shouldn't have to take responsibility for it. However, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda. Modim chachamim Rabbi Yehuda. However, chachamim do agree with Rabbi Yehuda in the case where izman shehatzlochis biyad tinok umadad hachenvani lesoch hachenvani pater. So if the son is holding the jar the entire time, and the chenvani just pours it into the jar, so he never took possession of the jar. Now the chenvani is patur. He's patur only for the jar, since the father gave the jar to the katan. So then the acharis is only on him, but nonetheless, for the oil and the change, the chenvani is still chayav.
Kennedy is the storekeeper.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Figured that.
Okay. Yod. Hasiton mekaneach midosav achas leshloshim yom. So this is basically a wholesaler is a siton. So he has got a measuring kalim that he uses to sell to the shopkeepers, and he needs to clean them out every 30 days because they develop a residue, and he's going to wind up giving them less than they're paying for. But the housekeeper who's got measuring kalim, he only has to clean his things out every 12 months because they don't have that much usage, and therefore they're not going to be encrusted so fast. So he only has to take care once a year to clean out his midas and make sure that he's giving a fair measure. Rabban Shimon Gamliel Chiluf Hadvarim, he says exactly the opposite. He says why? Because the wholesaler only needs to clean his things out every 12 months. Why? Because he's constantly selling. The liquids don't have a chance to congeal inside the measuring kli, but the balabayas has to do it every 30 days because he doesn't sell all the time. The remnants of the liquid will congeal and dry inside the measuring cup. So he holds it's exactly the opposite, but that's not the halacha. But a storekeeper has to clean his meadows twice a week, because he doesn't have to. Remember, in the previous Mishna, we said he doesn't even have to wait for the 3 drops to come out.
So this says once a week. So it says once a week here. Unless mine is wrong.
Pamayim b'Shabbos. No. That's the previous one. You're thinking about you cleaning his scales. The previous one, but the previous clause was talking about cleaning out his measuring cups. That he has to do twice a week. Because we said that
I'm sorry, I see it. I missed it. I see it. I'm sorry.
Okay. So he has to clean it twice a week. Why? Because he doesn't have to wait for the 3 drops. We gave him a heads up because he's always busy with customers. So because he's not even cleaning it between loading those 3 drops out, he has to clean much more frequently. And he has to wipe down his weights.
Weights once a week. That's what it was.
Once a week, because again he's putting them on in a place where they're going to get sticky and they might get heavier than they're supposed to be. So having so that's an Issur Torah to have weights that are not honest. So you have to clean them out once a week. Mekanech moznaim al kol mishkal mishkal, and every time he weighs produce on the scale, he has to wipe it out first, because there may be some residue that was left behind from the previous one, which the buyer is not going to get when you're weighing him on that scale.
Okay.
That's our 3 for the day.
Good. Okay, Gimel base. No, Gimel Aleph. Possession of houses, pits, ditches, vaults, dovecotes, bathhouses, olive presses, irrigated fields, slaves, and anything which provides benefits continually must be 3 years from day to day. A field watered by rain possessed 3 years, but not from day to day. Rabbi Yishmael says 3 months in the first, 3 in the last, and 12 months in between, for a total of 18 months. Rabbi Akiva says 1 month in the first, 1 month in the last, and 12 months in between, for a total of 14 months. And Ishmael said, in regard to what is this said? In regard to a field of grain, however, in the field of trees, if he gathered his crop, picked his olives, and gathered in his dried figs, these count as 3 years. There are 3 lands in Eretz Israel in regard to Chazaka: Judah, Transjordan, and the Galil. If he was in Judea and another took possession in the Galil, or if he was the Galil and another took possession in Judea, it is no Chazaka until he is with him in the same province. Rabbi Yehuda said they said 3 years only, so that in case one is in Spain and another takes possession of the fields for 1 year, they have 1 year to travel and notify him, and he can return the following year. Any possession not accompanied by a claim is not a Chazaka. How so? If he said to him, "What are you doing in my property?" and he replied, "Because no one ever said anything to me," it is not a Chazaka. But if he replied, "You sold it to me," or "You gave me it as a gift," or "Your father sold it to me," or "Your father gave it to me as a gift," is a Chazaka. One who comes to a property by virtue of inheritance does not require a claim. Craftsmen, partners, sharecroppers, and administrators have no Chazaka. Excuse me. A man has no Chazaka in the property of his wife, nor does a woman have a Chazaka in the property of her husband, nor a father in the property of his son, nor a son in the property of his father. In regard to what is stated, in regard to one who holds possession, in the case of one who gives a gift, brothers who divide, and one who takes possession of the property of a convert, if he closed off, pent off, or breached somewhat, it is a Chazaka. Okay. Where's that club coming from? Okay, we have Dalet Aleph. Gold acquires silver, but silver does not acquire gold. Copper acquires silver, but silver does not acquire copper. Disqualified coins acquire current ones, but current ones do not acquire disqualified ones. Unstamped metal acquires coins, but coins do not acquire unstamped metal. Movables acquire coins, but coins do not acquire movables, and this is a rule. No movables acquire each other. How? If he took produce from him but did not give him money, he cannot retract. If he gave him money but did not take the produce from him, he can retract. They said, however, he who exacted retribution from the people of the generation of the flood and from the generation of the dispersion will exact retribution from one who does not abide by his spoken word. The amount that constituted fraud is 4 silver miles out of 24 silver miles, which are equivalent to a seller or 6 to the purchase. When can one revoke the sale? Until he is able to show the item to a merchant or to his relative. The Tarfin ruled in law the amount that constitutes fraud is 8 silver miles out of the seller. A third of the purchase, and the merchants of Lord rejoiced. And he said to them, for a whole day one may revoke the sale. They said to him, let Rabbi Tarfin leave us alone in our place, and they went back to the words of the sages. Well, the buyer and the seller.
That's 3.
That's 3. Okay, Sota. Hey, babe. On the day Rabbi Akiva expounded, in any earthenware utensil into which any of them falls, whatever is in it shall become tameh. He did not say tameh, but rather yitma, even to render others tameh. This teaches that a loaf which is of a sheni degree of tumah can make a shlishi degree of tumah. Rabbi Yeshua said, "Who will remove the dust from your eyes?" The Zochanan ben Zakkai, for you used to say that a future generation would pronounce Toher, a loaf that was contaminated, as a Shlishi, since there is no verse in the Torah that is Tameh. But now does not Rabbi Akiva but now does not Akiva, your disciple, adduce a verse from the Torah that is Tameh? It is said, whatever is in it shall be Tameh. On the day Rabbi Akiva expounded, and you shall measure from outside the city, the east side, 10,000 cubits. But another verse states for the wall of the city and outward 1,000 cubits, round about. It is impossible to say 1,000 cubits since it already says 2,000 cubits, and it is impossible to say 2,000 because it already says 1,000. How do we resolve this? This 1,000 cubit are a clearing, of the 2,000 cubits are the Sabbath boundary. Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi Agile, says the 1,000 cubits are a clearing, the second 1,000 cubits are a field and vineyards. On that day, Rabbi Akiva expounded there, then Moses and the children of Israel sang the song to Hashem, and they spoke, saying, there is no necessity for the verse to say saying. What then is meant by saying? It teaches that the Israelites responded to Moshe after each praise, as when they recite the Hallel. Therefore it says saying. Rabbi Akiva says as when they recite the Shema, and not as when they recite the Hallel. Okay. Hey, Yoma. Okay, base hay. The daily sacrifice was offered with 9 Kohanim, or with 10, or with 11, or with 12, no less and no more. How so? The sacrifice itself with 9. On Sukkot, one held a flask of water in his hand, thus we have 10. In the afternoon with 11, the sacrifice itself with 9, plus 2 who held 2 logs in their hands. On the Sabbath with 11, the sacrifice itself with 9, plus 2 who held 2 spoonfuls of frankincense and a pot of bread in their hands, and on the Sabbath during Sukkot, one held a flask of water in his hand. A ram was offered with 11, the meat with 5, the intestines, the fine flour, and the wine with 2 each. An ox was offered with 24, the head, the hind leg, the head with 1, and the hind leg with 2, the tail and the hind leg, the tail with 2, and the hind leg with 2, the breast and the neck, the breast with 1, and the neck with 3. The 2 forelegs with 2, the 2 sides with 2, the intestines with 5, the fine flour, and the wine with 3 each. In which case do the above apply for communal sacrifices, but for personal sacrifice, if he wanted to offer, he may do so. The flaying and dissection of these and of those are the same. Finishing Tevel Yom today. I think.
Yep, and starting with
Asclonian Asclonian grapnels that broke, but the hook remains intact are tummy. The pitchfork, the winnowing fork, the rake, and similarly a head comb that had one of their prongs removed and one replaced with them with a prong of metal, they are tummy. Concerning all of these, Rabbi Yeshua said, the scribes have introduced a novel principle, and I cannot answer it. One who was separating truma from a pit, and he said, this is truma on condition that it comes up without mishap. He means without the mishap of breaking or spilling, but not the mishap of tuma. Reb Shimon says he means even the mishap of tuma. If it breaks, it does not create meduma. Until where can it break and not create meduma? As long as it can roll and still reach the pit. Reb Yossi says even one who intended to stipulate that one does, but did not stipulate, if he breaks it, he does not create a meduma. If this is since this is a stipulation of the court.
And one from Yadayim.
A rebus of water in the minimum after mount for washing hands is 1 person, and even for 2 people. A half log is the amount for 3 or 4 people. From a log and more is the amount for 5 or 10, or even for 100 people. But Yossi says, provided that there is no less than 1 rebus for the last of them. Okay. Let me see.
One more sentence.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was reading. One may add to the second waters, but one may not add to the first water.
Okay, that's it. And
okay, and Teresa's. Rabbi Akiva asked them further, a dangling limb of an animal, what is it considered? They replied to him, "This is we have not heard, but we have heard that a dangling limb of a human is tahor. For so were the lepers in Jerusalem want to do. He would go to a surgeon on the eve of Pesach, and the latter would serve it until he would leave over a barley corn's breath and impale it on a thorn, and he would pull away from it. He is liable to one katos for all of them, or one for each." They reply, is he replied?
Hold on a second. Did you skip a page there?
I did. Okay. Let's see. And he would pull away from the thorn. Then that person would make his Pesach offering, and the surgeon would make his Pesach offering, and we believe that the matter is a kal v'chomer. But Akiva asked him further, if one slaughters 5 offerings outside the temple and one lapse of awareness, what is the ruling? Is he liable to one katos for all of them, or one for each? They replied to him, "This we have not heard." Rabbi Yeshua says, "I have heard that one who eats of his offering in 5 dishes in one lapse of awareness is liable for a meal offering for each one, and I believe the matter it's a kal v'chomer." Said Reb Shimon, Rabbi Akiva did not ask them about such a case. Rather, if one ate, if I'm sorry, if one ate leftover of 5 offerings in one lapse of awareness, what is he liable for? Is he liable for one? Is he liable to one for all of them, or one for each? They replied to him, "We have not heard." Said Rabbi Yeshua, "I have heard that if one eats for one offering in 5 dishes, he is liable for a meal offering for each one, and I believe that the matter is a kal v'chomer." Said Rabbi Akiva, "If this is an accepted halacha, we will accept it, but if it is a logical deduction, it is a refutation." He said to him, "Refute it." He applied to him, "No, if you say that in the case of Mila, in which the Torah made the one who gives to eat as though it were eating it, and the one who was told benefit as though he were receiving benefit, and the Torah reckoned together the Mila over a long period of time, can you say the same regarding the case of the leftover offering, which has none of these stringencies?" Right. Said Rabbi Akiva, "I asked Rabbi Eliezer, if one person performs many labors on Shabbos of the same type of work in one lapse of awareness, what is the ruling? He is liable to one for all of them, or to one or to one for each one." He replied to me, "He is liable for each one from a kal v'chomer. Now, for a menstruous woman, a prohibition which has no numerous classifications or many ways of being liable to a katos, so he is liable to each one, nor does it follow that for the Sabbath, which has numerous classifications and many ways of being liable to a katos, that he should be liable for each one." I replied to him, "No, if you say this in regard to the menstruant, it's because 2 prohibitions are involved. One, he is prohibited from being intimate with the menstruant, and the menstruant is prohibited from being intimate with him. Can you say the same regarding Shabbos, in which only 1 prohibition is involved?" He replied, "The case of one who cohabitates with minors will prove this ruling. For they have only 1 prohibition, yet he is liable for each one." I replied to him, "No, if you state this ruling regarding one who cohabitates with minors, which already there is no prohibition, now there is one later. Can you state it regarding Shabbos, which neither now nor later has separate katos?" He replied to me, "The case of one intimate with an animal will prove it." I replied to him, "Indeed, the case concerning the animal is like the case of the Sabbath."
Yeah. Okay.
Good. All right. Yeah, and I will thank you very much for making accommodations.
No problem. Have a lovely day.
Have a great day. You're going out to do like you're going running today?
Gymming.
Swimming. Oh, very nice.
Gymming.
Okay.
Gymming.
Gymming. Okay. Have a great day. Thank you.